Kia ora everyone. My name is Paul Durden. I am co-chair of the New Zealand chapter of the Australasian College of Road Safety, and we're really delighted to be hosting this webinar today in conjunction with Break as part of the Road Safety Week in New Zealand. For those of you that may not be aware of us, the ACRS is the region's peak membership association for road safety. Our 900 plus members come from over 40 countries and include experts from all areas of road safety, including policymakers, health and transport professionals, academics, community organisations, researchers, federal, state and local government agency, as well as private companies and members of the public. Our purpose is to support our members in their efforts to eliminate serious road trauma through knowledge sharing, professional development, networking and advocacy. The vision of the college is the elimination of fatal and serious injury for all road users. And we do that by supporting our members through advocacy, such as helping with writing submissions, policy position statements and the like, and through events such as these, where we have chapter and network meetings and webinars, as well as the annual Australasian Road Safety Conference, which is being held in Perth in October this year. This set of policy principles underpins the position taken by the College on Policy and Road Safety. They draw inspiration from good practice in the safest countries and the safest industries, and are designed to provide an overview of our fundamental values and are the foundation of our advocacy work. Here you can see some of the policy position statements that the college has produced. They're all accessible via the college's website and through the member portal area. Also, the college helps each of the chapters and networks in preparing submissions, and in New Zealand a number of those have been made, and I know we just submitted on one yesterday as well. But, they're all available through the various chapter portals on the website as well. As I said, there are chapters in each of the states as well as New Zealand, and there is an international outreach committee, and there are networks for various interest groups such as the Early Career Network, Local Government Network and Women in Road Safety as well. We encourage everyone to become members of the college if you aren't already. There is a wide range of benefits, including weekly alerts about pertinent road safety issues, attending webinars like this, professional development, discounted rate for attending the annual Road Safety Conference, and other networking events. You can also, as a member, access the webinar library. So this particular webinar will be available on the webinar library within a week of today, so you can watch it again if you miss any part of it, or share it with some of your colleagues as well. Membership prices are really reasonable. Annual fees are shown there, that's GST inclusive. And if you want to join, then visit acrs.org.au/membership or scan that QR code. And if you've got any inquiries, please just contact admin@acrs.org.au. Thank you. And with that, I will look to introduce the first of our speakers today, which is Dr. Hamish Mackie of Mackie Research. And Hamish is going to be presenting on connecting global guidance to the New Zealand context. So, Hamish, I will hand over to you. Oh, before I do that, I should just mention we do have Q&A availability here, and we will be taking Q&A after we've had presentations from Hamish and Irene Tse. So if you do have any questions, please pop them into the Q&A section at the bottom of your page there, and we'll work through those as best we can in the time that we have available. Thank you.
Well, kia ora everyone. Thank you, Paul, for that introduction, and welcome everyone to this webinar. So firstly, what I'm going to do is just talk about some of the global guidance for walking and cycling that have just been released. The WHO Promoting Walking and Cycling Toolkit for Policy Options. And what I'm going to do is then connect that to the New Zealand context, and following on from me, Irene Tse from Auckland Transport is going to give a more detailed sort of overview of some of the interesting things that are happening in this space at Auckland and Auckland Transport. So I'm presenting this work here in my capacity as a committee member of the ACRS New Zealand Chapter. My background's in human factors, and I'm a transport researcher. I've been working for a while in this area, and I'll crack on with it. So what I'll do, just more specifically, firstly, I'll just summarise some of the key points from the WHO Promoting Walking and Cycling Toolkit. And then what I'll do is I'll just talk a little bit about perhaps why a focus on walking and cycling is really important in the New Zealand context, building on that global guidance, and then look at some of the principles and challenges that we have here in New Zealand in the delivery context. So first, earlier this week, as part of the 8th UN Global Road Safety Week, we had the Walking and Cycling Toolkit of Policy Options by the World Health Organization released. This is what the front looks like, and you can see a link down below. You can access that and a bunch of related documents and initiatives and things. But it's part of a series developed by the WHO to help countries implement policies and practices to improve levels of physical activity, road safety, and urban health. I'm not going to go into the details of the entire contents and a rundown of the whole thing, but I will just sort of highlight some of the key sections and what they include in it. Firstly, there's a real focus on why increasing walking and cycling is important. And this is interesting as it'll become clearer later on. This focus on why it is we need to be continuing to say why it's important in the first place, and getting it into our agendas, beyond some of the technical guidance and things that we have. But then section 2 goes on to sort of policy action areas to increase walking and cycling. And section 3 is looking at some of the key enablers for successful implementation. And if you look at some of the subsections in section 3 there, and this sort of in some ways summarizes the pitch of the whole policy toolkit in general, is that it's really focused on policymakers and how it is we can get the agenda of safe walking and cycling into transport investment programs. And that's interesting. I think it's very timely. I think it's fair to say that globally, we don't yet have an embedded sort of understanding that walking and cycling and other sort of opportunities for things like motorcycling enjoy the same levels of modal priority as other modes in an integrated transport system. So it's sort of saying that generally we have to do more in this space, and here's some ways that we can go about it. Now, this is just a bit of a snapshot of some of the why it's important that we focus on walking and cycling. And to those of us who work in this space, it won't be a surprise, this list of things, but to the uninitiated, and later we'll talk about what the public understands, it might be quite surprising that there are actually just a range of benefits, from environmental to health to mobility, benefits to investing in walking and cycling. They're all sort of run down there, and there's a bit more on that and the policy options, and later on I'll just talk a little bit more about what that looks like in the New Zealand context as well. But I mean, the main point is that there's really quite a strong case when we look at all these when we look at all these benefits. The problem we have is that these benefits are very distributed across different areas of society and government. So it's difficult for us to sort of pull them together and package them up into one area that creates a very strong case for investment in one part of government. And so I guess that's a bit of a challenge for us in terms of promoting and implementing walking and cycling. If we look at the main, this is sort of the guts of the toolkit, and if we look at the main sort of policy areas, again, I don't have time here to go into all of these, but I will just highlight a couple of parts of the sort of policy action areas, and one of them is this idea of integration, and that first one there. And like I said before, a lot of these benefits and things are distributed across different parts of life. And so doing a better job to sort of integrate walking and cycling into all other parts of government and different parts of the transport system is really important. For example, it might be that the health system, isn't involved with actually delivering the transport system, but people in the health system can do a lot to say that walking and cycling is very important for health outcomes for people. So that's just one example of how integration could happen more. And if we look at number 6 there, facilitating an integrated transport options, making sure that, in a modern integrated transport system, we have walking and cycling doing its part in that system. I think we all understand that integrated transport has the right modes doing the right thing at the right time in the right place, and making sure that we have that holistic understanding and understanding where walking and cycling is going to make the most difference and contribute the most. So that's just a really quick rundown of some of the key things that jumped out at me when I read the toolkit. I'm just going to sort of move on to why a focus on safe walking and cycling in New Zealand is needed, building on that guidance. So firstly, if we look at just the Auckland example, almost half of deaths and serious injuries from 2019 to 23 in Auckland were actually pedestrian cyclists or motorcyclists. So that's a really, really big proportion. And we don't think necessarily specifically about those modes, when we're considering the overall kind of safety sort of problem that we have and the things we need to do about it. I know people at Auckland Transport and NZTA and other places do think about this, but broadly, to a lot of people, that might be a bit of a surprise that just so many of these road users are actually represented in the harm statistics. And meanwhile, there are considerable health, environmental and other benefits from these modes. And I've outlined them a little bit in the previous slides, but if you want a New Zealand take on that, then you can actually go to this website here, and Dr. Kirsty Wild has actually done a nice job of pulling together some of the what we call proof points for walking, separately for cycling and also for school travel. So just as an example, you can look at this sort of thing. This is just a snip from the walking proof points. You can go to her website, look at the walking proof points, and there's a whole list of different references that explains what the benefits of walking are. So that's just a New Zealand case, but generally we see overall that there are some very strong benefits when it comes to walking and cycling. And I think most importantly, active modes make very strong economic sense. When we collect up all the benefits in these areas that we talk about, we often see benefit cost ratios in projects that are in the order of 6 to 8 is very, very common. Sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's much higher. So we have a very strong economic case for actually investing in walking and cycling. And actually, this is a reminder that you can go to this website here to get the HEAT tool, the health economic assessment tool. That's been around for a long time, but the latest version of it there, and it's an easy to use online document you can use to worksheet to actually work out the benefits, the economic benefits of walking and cycling. Now, what I'm going to do is just give you some very specific New Zealand examples of the benefits of walking and cycling. So the first one I want to do is the Mangere e-bike trial. And this was a trial where Mangere residents had access to e-bikes for 2 or 3 months, and in a structured way with a lot of support from a local e-bike provider, local community provider, and there was also a program of evaluation that went around it. In particular, there was a 7-day travel diary and people sort of talking about their experiences of having these e-bikes. And what we found was that a lot of people's trips actually switched to using the e-bikes at the end of the trial. So not all trips, but the right trips. And I think people seem very astute at working out which trips could be switched to e-bike trips. And I think this quote from one of the participants here sums it all up really nicely. Usually on my pay scale, my petrol tank is damn near empty. Then we got the e-bikes, and when I got paid again, it had only got the petrol tank in the car had only gone down by half because it had pretty much just sat in the driveway. So to me, that's a very, very clear message of some very tangible and clear economic benefits from switching some of these trips to e-bike trips. In the same area in Mangere, this is another project as part of the wider Te Aramua Future Streets project. And as part of this project involved the investment of about $10 million of walking and cycling focused infrastructure to make it safer and easier to walk and cycle. The problem we had there was that a lot of people were trying to get around and do their day-to-day activities. For example, this trip here from the town centre, trying to get to across the road to places like the Samoan consulate, to Wananga or Aotearoa, and other health providers and other things. But it was a very busy road, Mascot Ave, a busy car park, and people were really quite chancing it despite the splitter island that had been put in there. So as part of the project, new infrastructure was put in, raised crossings, cycle lanes and wider footpaths and flush services and planting and other sort of cultural elements as well. And it really made quite a big difference for people trying to get around. And I'm just going to step through very quickly some of those benefits. If we look at what that did to the interactions between road users, you can see that, and what these blurs, these blobs here represent, these are interactions between pedestrians and vehicles. And what we saw before the intervention is that a lot of people chancing it at different parts of the road, standing in the middle of the road, trying to find a gap in the traffic and getting across the road. After we put that in, you can see that those interactions were very much sort of confined to the safer sort of parts and lower speed parts of the network off to the side, and they'd reduced significantly overall. So very, very big changes into the patterns, and we saw a lot of people diverted to that crossing just because it provided such a good level of service for them. And it wasn't a surprise that, as well as the speed reductions that we got in the area, which made it a lot safer for people, we saw a corresponding reduction in crashes. And where we made the changes to the streets in particular, where the intervention roads were actually changed, we actually saw an 80% reduction in all injury crashes. Less if we look at the wider treatment area, but that was because some of the streets remained unchanged. And even in the control area, over time, some improvements were being made through other projects. So we started to even see some improvements in the control area eventually. But I think this story is sometimes quite most effectively told by some of the people who actually live there. And this is a good chance to talk about accessibility and the range of people that we hope to include, when we think about transport infrastructure. And this is someone who uses a wheelchair to get around every day. And really, this infrastructure was quite transformational for her because it meant that she was able now to basically access places that she actually couldn't access before without someone coming along and actually helping her over curbs and things like that. So for her, it's made a significant difference. And we actually found the same thing when we interviewed Pacific elders and Kaumatua in the area. And actually, when we looked at this particular crossing, the one I just showed you, we actually found that there was a large increase, well, a relatively large increase compared with the proportion of people who use mobility devices in the area and those people who were willing to use this crossing. And that actually points to quite a nice little method that you can use. I think it was Bridget Burdett, either she came up with it or she's been promoting it, where you can look at the proportion of people who are using mobility devices using the crossing, compare that with the proportion of people who use mobility devices in the community, and work out whether you've got an underrepresentation or whether it's fully helping them or not, which I think is quite an elegant way of looking at success. And just a final, on these examples here, just a final point on, I guess, just the importance of focusing on safe walking and cycling infrastructure. I'll never forget this quote from a doctor at the Urban Design Conference back in 2018. And he reinforced to us all that really, he was an ED doctor there at Wellington Hospital. And he reinforced that, he's really in the business of fixing people, but he was reinforcing to the transport and urban planners at this conference that, you are the health system. And I think that really resonated with me, that when we design and implement infrastructure, we're actually implementing the health system here. And I think that's a very handy way to look at this. Okay, so just for the very last bit here, before I hand over to Irene, I just want to just focus on some of the principles and challenges in a New Zealand delivery context. So one thing that I think is pretty clear, if you take a sort of 10 or 20 year view of what we've been doing in the space of walking and cycling and providing for our vulnerable road users in New Zealand, it's pretty clear there's been some pretty good progress in the area of guidance, expertise, initiatives, and even when you walk around Auckland and other places, you see that there's really quite a lot of progress that's been made. I don't think we have any shortage really of expertise and knowledge in terms of what to do. That's an area we've done really well, I think. If we think about really what our challenges actually are, though, in this area, perhaps it's more in our ability to actually have the mandate to implement this stuff in the first place. And this just touches on a program of research that we've been involved in over the years, and it's looking at what we call the socio-technical challenge. And that's saying that, look, implementing and walking and cycling is not just a technical challenge. It is, and that we have to work out how to get, reallocate road space and make sure people can get around easily and things like that from a technical point of view. But what about the broader mandate, the investment mechanisms, societal buy-in, and all of that that's needed to actually unlock all of that expertise and investment so we can actually prioritise walking and cycling, and motorcycling in the right places as part of an integrated transport plan. And what's clear from the research to date is that generally at a societal level at least, and we might appreciate this as professionals, but at a societal level, we don't really have this very overt appreciation of the link between streets, well-being, and things like climate change. And when we go all the way down through the system, we still have this situation where we find it quite difficult to deliver environments that support low carbon travel or walking and cycling or even motorcycling in some situations. And we have streets that by and large still don't feel that good for people wanting to use these modes. Now, notwithstanding that, we need to think of some of the the progress we do made in cities like Christchurch are really coming along, particularly with the cycle network they've built. More recently, we see Wellington doing some excellent work, and even here in Auckland, where I'm based, you see some really cool projects that are really starting to come along. So we are making progress. It's just that it's quite slow and it's a little bit painful. And if we just unpack that a little bit more, and this is just a snip from some of the system analysis work that we've been doing, and this just pulls, I guess, lessons learned from some of the system analyses of different road safety and walking and cycling projects that we've been involved with. And what's really clear is that we don't have this sort of national sort of public-facing mandate or story that's very clear for people. And just a little example I had the other day, I was doing a presentation with a group of driving instructors, and I got to the point where I showed them that inevitable slide of the 30 kilometers an hour, much above that, and it increases the risk of death and serious injury for pedestrians and cyclists significantly, and the usual sort of graphics that we have with that. And then one of the people in the workshop, one of the driving instructors, put their hand up and they said, why isn't this an advertisement on TV? Why don't we know this generally across the country? And I actually thought that was a very good question. And reflecting to me, it suddenly was like, well, actually, we take this for granted at a professional level. But I think actually most, New Zealanders and Australians and other people actually don't know some of that basic stuff. And if we just did a little bit more to find a way of having these public-facing conversations as to why a 30-kilometre-an-hour speed limit might be so important, or why a race safety platform crossing might be really important, then perhaps we would find some of the challenges of implementation as we get down through the system just a little bit easier. So there's just some thoughts from some of the system work that we've been involved with. I'm just going to finish off before I hand over to Irene, but I'll just finish with these questions, which I think emerged out of my quick look at the WHO toolkit and some thoughts going forwards. So, how do we connect with global guidance and evidence to advance walking and cycling in New Zealand? What is the pathway for key organisations and stakeholders to understand the substantial benefits of safe and active travel? And lastly, where are we at in New Zealand? What do we need to focus on more to advance implementation? So they might be questions that we can dig into in a later date, possibly. And before I stop, I'll just also give a quick plug to the upcoming UN Decade of Sustainable Transport. This has been announced by the United Nations 2026 to 2035 will be the UN Decade of Sustainable Transport. And also just to note that the ACRS policy position on climate change and road safety aligns very, very closely with a lot of the things we've been talking about here today as well. So that's another thing you can go and have a look at if you wish to. So with that, I'll hand over to Irene, and she'll pick us up on her more detailed look at some of the great work that's been happening at Auckland Transport. Thanks, Irene.
Thanks for that, Hamish. Yes, so as Hamish mentioned, our next presenter is Irene Tse from Auckland Transport, and Irene will be presenting on lower cost road safety engineering interventions, those practical engineering solutions for safer walking, cycling and motorcycling in the current context in Auckland. Irene, thanks for joining us today. Over to you.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Sorry, I got a little bit of technical problem. Yep, here we go. Okay, so thank you, Hamish, and thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for having me today. I'm very excited to share the Auckland's journey in exploring low-cost safety interventions to reduce crash risks for people traveling outside vehicles at urban intersections. I will talk a little bit about the crash trends and the risk of these road users and some of the low-cost safety interventions that we have been using and trialing, and with some of the insights in their effectiveness. So over the past 5 years, an average of 530 people have been killed and seriously injured in our network every year. Vulnerable road users, i.e. pedestrians, cyclists and motorcyclists, make up 48% of the death and serious injury, DSI, with 53% of them were at intersections. In 2017, Auckland Transport experienced a road safety crisis, with DSI increased by more than 70% of. In 2017, Auckland experienced a road safety crisis, with DSI increased by more than 70%. Recognizing the urgent need for change, Auckland Transport adopted Vision Zero in 2019 and committing to eliminate DSI on our network by 2050. This helps to guide the efforts of us implementing measures to improving safety in our network. Between 2019 and 2023, over 32% of pedestrians' crashes were at intersections, and more than half at give way or stop priority controlled. The remaining majority happened at signalized intersections. For cyclists, as just more than 50% of the DSI occurred at intersections, with 3/4 happened at priority controlled. About 40% of the motorcyclist crash happened at intersections, with 64% of them occurred at priority controlled. So as you can see, we've got big problems. And there are also a significant number of pedestrian crashes at signalized intersections. While this is a little bit counterintuitive, because in principle, all the conflicting movements between pedestrians and vehicles can be managed out by time separations. At give-way control, 60% of the pedestrian crashes involving vehicle approaching the intersections, as you can see on the picture, as well as followed by vehicles right turning, and then vehicles left turning into the side road. This is not surprising at all, because pedestrians at priority intersections, they have to find their own safe gaps to negotiate across the road. As mentioned earlier, 75% of the cyclist crashes occurred at priority controlled intersections, and a significant number of those crashes happened at busy intersections along multi-lane arterial corridors with special vehicle lanes arrangement. One of the biggest contributing factors that we found was the masking effect caused by queuing vehicles at general traffic lane. Another critical issue is to do with look but did not see phenomenon, where driver checks on the oncoming traffic but fail to see the approaching cyclists at the intersections. This issue also applies to cyclists at signalized intersection. Motorcyclists unfortunately experience very similar crash pattern as the cyclists at priority controlled and signalized intersection too. The most incidents also involving a lot of the right turning vehicles turning as well. So in some of our deep dive crash analysis, we also know that most of the DSI crashes in our network occurred when multi-safe system pillar conditions were being compromised, especially within the roads and roadside and speed pillar. As our human bodies have limited ability to withstand crash force, that's why even very small reduction in harmful energy associated with speed can help to make the network safer for everyone. So in Auckland at the moment, we have got around 190 priority controlled intersections that identify as high or medium high risk for pedestrians and cyclists, of which 51 of them also have high or medium high risk for motorcyclists too. We recognize that implementing transformational changes across all the high-risk locations are not feasible and not affordable for us, but it cannot be achieved in a short period of time. Therefore, we think that exploring low-cost treatments as interim safety interventions would help to mitigate the risks while we are planning and progressing for future improvements. So what we have done. Let's start with pedestrian conflicts at signalized intersections. To increase the efficiency of signalized intersections, we always have the pedestrian phase run parallel to the vehicle movements. This always leads to conflicts because when vehicles making left turn while pedestrians are crossing, driver may not actually spot the pedestrians and result vehicles failing to give way to them. Traditionally, we will put in a red arrow signals to hold the left turning vehicle back during the pedestrian phase, typically a fixed 6 seconds duration. There are some locations that we will use longer pedestrian protection, but for longer crossing. However, we see that vehicle often running red. To address this issue, we used some real-time data as well as adaptive traffic signal setting to help us to manage that conflict. This is Taharoto Road and Shakespeare Road intersection. This intersection is actually located in near Westlake Girls' School, Smells Farm Bus Station, North Shore Hospital, and a retirement home. So you would be expecting to see a lot of pedestrian at all times. Pedestrian also needs to cross 6 lanes parallel to the traffic on Shakespeare's Road. To address this, we set up crossing detection area, which is highlighted in yellow, with a camera to monitor pedestrian crossing and extending their protection time when needed. Once the crossing is clear, the system will drop the red arrow for vehicles. This adaptive signal setting reduced the unnecessary delays for traffic, and hopefully it also reduced the red light running incidents, and it only holds the traffic back while pedestrians are crossing. At the same time, we also put in cameras at the detection zone, which is highlighted in blue, to detect pedestrian presence, and automatically to extend the green man phase when a lot of people are waiting to cross, as such that we ensure all pedestrians have enough time to cross the road. Similar technology has been successfully implemented at Simon Street and Grafton Road intersection, where pedestrian activities are exceptionally high, as you can see on the picture on the left. It's actually always high during the day, especially when the students are moving between the lecture halls because this intersection is in the university area. We believe that this arrangement improves the level of service and also safety for pedestrians while preventing unnecessary delays for traffic. That helps to reduce the frustration and the risk for the red light running issues. You might be wondering what happened if the camera stopped working. There's a safeguard in place to constantly monitoring the system's functionality. If there's a fault, the signal automatically reverts to the signal setting and ensuring traffic flow and pedestrian safety are maintained. We also use some smarts to improve cyclist safety at signalized intersections. Tamaki Drive is a popular cycle route in Auckland and has second highest cyclist movements in Auckland, but it's also a high-risk location for cyclists. This particular intersection at Port of Auckland is extremely challenging due to the geometry of the slip lanes, making it difficult for cyclists to cross. There are also a lot of left-turning trucks movement to access the port. As trucks have extensive and a high number of blind spots and also longer stopping distance, it makes it extremely challenging for trucks to spot the fast-moving cyclists and give way to them if required. In 2022, Auckland Transport implemented key upgrades along Tamaki Drive to improve safety for the cyclist and walking connections between city and the eastern suburb. As this particular intersection, a bidirectional cycle path is being introduced, with the 2 left-turn slip lane being removed. However, since the upgrade, we also notice a lot of cyclists running red lights and cutting through the intersection. To address this issue, we installed advanced detection system for both cyclists and turning traffic. We then set the cycle lane, we then set the cycle phase running on green at all times. So if a truck approaching and there's no cyclist presence, then the cycle phase ends and then the green signals will give back to the trucks. If a trucks arrive while cyclists are present, then the cycle phase will extend, ensuring the cyclists are clear of the intersection before the green phase is giving back to the trucks or giving back to the traffic. With this arrangement, cyclists and trucks have the time separation, as well as they have the green wave 80% of the time. This initiative was very well received by both Port of Auckland and for the cycle advocacy group. We also use similar technologies here on Nelson Street. Here, we have got a 2-way cycleway on a 1-way street, where that means that cycle detection is needed to cover both approaches. Previously, cyclists receive a green cycle time for 6 seconds at the beginning of the phase, while the left-turning vehicles are held back with a red arrow. After this very brief window, the cyclist signals turns red, and then the left-turning vehicles were giving the green light. Any cyclist, if they are arriving after the 6 seconds and has to wait for the whole cycle before they can actually cross. Clearly, it is not a very good good level of service for cyclists, and that leads to an unacceptable number of cyclists running the red light, as you can see. So what we did is we set up detection system to detect both cyclists at the limit line and also along the cycle lane as marked in yellow, as well as turning vehicles within the left turn lane as marked in green. So when cyclists approaching the intersection, the system will detect them and set the green light for the cyclist to cross. When there is no vehicle waiting to turn left, the cycle time will be extended for cyclists until they are all clear of the intersection. When the red arrow may hold back, while the red arrow may hold back the left turn traffic a little bit longer, but we also use the smarts to determine the queue length of the left turn vehicles and extend the green phase to clear the left turn traffic if required. Obviously, we will do similar arrangement for the opposing side. And to assess the effectiveness and the improvement, we conducted surveys comparing the cycle time and the red light running before and after the implementation. We found that average delay for cyclists across both directions have been reduced by 74%, dropping from 37 seconds to just 8 seconds at all times. That's including peak hours traffic. The changes also improve the level of service for cyclists, with 30% more cyclists having the green light now when they arrive in the intersection. We also found that the improvement has reduced 20% of the overall red light running incidents. Reduced 20% of the overall red light running incidents, but notice that there have been an increase of red light running during the PM peak. This indicates that there are still further work that we need to do to improve the situation. You will be pleased to know that we have achieved a 52% reduction in delay for left-turning vehicles during the AM peak, while there's a 4 seconds increase for the PM peak. A lot of you wanting to know what exactly the monetary value benefits would look like, and this is the numbers for you. As mentioned earlier, we also have significant safety challenges at priority intersections at urban arterial roads. So to address the issues with the motorcycle and cycle at priority intersections, we have done some trial on Dominion Road since 2020. Dominion Road is a mixed-use arterial corridors with 4-lane traffic and a single flush median. It carries around 21,000 vehicles per day and has a very tidal peak hour congestion. It is a key route for buses, cyclists, and motorcyclists. The corridor has been overly represented with crashes involving right-turning vehicles onto the side road, colliding with motorcyclists and cyclists. 2 major causation factors were identified. They are dynamic masking effect due to the queuing of traffic on the general traffic lane and differential speed of cyclists and motorcyclists on the special vehicle lanes. This makes it difficult for the turning traffic to detect these riders in the special vehicle lane and give way to them in time. So to improve the masking effect, we focus in improving visibilities between the right-turning vehicle and the riders on the special vehicle lanes. We proposed yellow clear hatching at intersections. The extent of the hatching was determined by using the visibility requirement. And since the proposed hatching was extended beyond the standard intersection control area, it is not permitted under the current rules and regulations, and hence it requires to undergo traffic control device rule trial to assess the effectiveness in the real world before we can roll it out. The hatching was installed in 2020. We have also introduced an electronic sign with motorcycle and cyclist symbol facing the right-turning traffic. The sign is activated by approaching riders on the special vehicle lane. This is to provide warning to right-turning vehicles on approaching riders. As the flashing signs here displays the rider symbols, and hence it's required a traffic control device rule trial again, because this is not a standard sign, and the sign has been installed in 2021. So this is how it looks like, on the road. And now I will share some of the results with you. To evaluate that, we conducted two-week-long video observations during peak hours at 11 of the treated intersections and 4 controlled intersections. The focus is to analyze the number and the severity level of the conflict between vehicles and the riders. The conflict were categorized based on severity, and for us, we're focusing on the close encounter, avoidance, near misses, and collision category. Overall results confirms that the conflicts occurred most frequently during busy traffic conditions, with traffic kind of a free flow conditions, followed by bumper to bumper, and then the standstill condition. On our analysis, most severe interactions shows decrease in conflict at both treated and control sites between the baseline and the hatching plus sign treatment. Noticeably, total avoidance initially increased at the hatching only site, but then dropped below baseline once the sign were installed. This suggests that people are getting more familiar with the interventions and adjust their behavior accordingly. And another particular promising outcome is that the hatching and the sign locations, none of the recorded near misses were involved right turning encounters. This results indicates some positive trend in reducing the number of conflicts as well as the severity of the conflict, and enforcing that the effectiveness of the targets and intervention. So although we noticed that there is a reduction in speed on the riders on the special vehicle lane, as you can see on the table, we consider this speed is still unsafe for motorcycle and cyclists as it exceeds the safe system range speed for this type of road users. There is also a high chance of these riders suffering serious injury or getting killed should a crash happen. That is why we would like to introduce additional signage to attempt to further reduce the speed of the motorcycle and cyclist. To address the speed problem, we are proposing to install vehicle turning signs facing the approaching riders when vehicle is turning at the we are proposing to install a turning vehicle sign facing the approaching riders when a vehicle is waiting at the intersection to turn right. This is to provide a clear warning about the right turning vehicles and help to alert the rider to adjust their speed and to ensure that the impact speed will be as close to the safe system speed as possible and reduce the likelihood of the crash as well as the severity of the crash. To further help with the safety, we're also proposing that some of the in-ground studs to be installed to highlight the conflict area. And again, because these studs are gazetted to use at zebra crossings, and we are using this at the intersection, therefore, we still need to trial this under the TCD rule trial. We are expecting the trial to be both of the trial for the turning vehicle sign as well as the studs to be completed by early 2026. Auckland is committed to delivering a safe program which prioritizes high impact safe system interventions. As you can see, some of the low cost interventions have delivered promising results in improving safety, but they are still in a very minimal way. We also acknowledge that these low-cost measures do not achieve a safe system outcome, and they can only be used for supportive treatment. And therefore, we will continue to explore these options and ensuring that every effort contributes towards enhancing safety will be explored and within the current budget constraint that we have. So this concludes my presentation. I hope that you find this presentation interesting. We welcome your ideas, suggestions, and feedback, and working with us together to build a safer and more reliant transport network. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for that, Irene. It was a great presentation, both you and Hamish. So thanks very much for that. We have got a little bit of time for questions. So Irene, if you just want to stop sharing your screen, and Hamish, if you could put your video back on, that would be great. And then we'll take any questions. So if anyone would like to put a question through, you can pop it in the Q&A or in the chat if you need to as well. It's fine. So in the Q&A, I have got one question that's come through. which is from Anna. So Anna says, amazing examples, Irene. Is it faster and more cost effective to set up radar detection for pedestrian cyclist protection than to change the design or infrastructure of the intersection? And second part to it, do you think it offers a similar level of protection to design changes?
So I guess it depending on the problems that we have, and also it also depends on the budgets that we have. So obviously, having the infrastructure changes, especially having a safe system design, would definitely help to eliminate future death and serious crashes. It's just that a lot of the times that they are not quite affordable, and that is why we're actually wanting to have a mixture of both. We'll try to prioritize as many of the high-risk locations to be fixed, with primary safe system treatments. And while there will be some sites that waiting for treatments or waiting for more long-term improvements, will be actually using those technologies. And I hear that radar, yes, is also one way of doing it. That's why we are trialing the technologies ourselves. And we also actually felt that some of the FLIR camera would be slightly a better option, because they actually detect the temperature of the pedestrians and make it a little bit more accurate. And that's why we have been using the cameras. But I will talk to my colleagues and see whether we can actually try a little bit more for the using the radar. Yep, thank you.
Great, thank you, Irene. And I can also see Hamish put something in the chat around your presentation, Irene, but as a regular cyclist user of Tamaki Drive and the Port intersection, he feels compliance seems to be improving. Hamish, I don't know if you want to add to that at all.
Oh, thanks, Carolyn. Yeah, no, it was just in support of that bit that Irene presented as one of the earlier examples. Those changes to the slip lanes in particular, I think, have made a huge difference. And I actually wasn't aware of the smarts that they'd put in behind that in terms of detection, because there really is a juggling act between the priority of cyclists going. It's a real cycle highway through there in the morning, but you've also got the trucks turning into the port, and no, just generally, I think it's working about as well as it could be. So well done.
Thanks, Hamish and Irene. And yeah, I also use that intersection quite a lot and would say the same. But I think, Irene, you mentioned something about there could be some possible further improvements. Are there anything that's in development already with any of those, or is that something that's still to be sort of looked at and analysed a bit further?
Yes, we are still trialing, because there's always got some room for improvements. It's just that I can't actually, I've been told that I can't actually tell you and share that with you. It's because we are still trialing things. So but keep in mind that we always have CCTV in the network, that we can actually always monitoring those changes and those subtle changes as well. So yeah, but if there's any feedback anyone wants to give us, please feel free to drop me an email. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks, Irene. I can't see any other questions coming through, but I'll give it a moment in case anyone has any final questions to put through, or Ping or Paul also as co-facilitators, if you have any questions, anything you want to add.
I had a question actually.
Yeah.
Thank you, Caroline. Hamish, I really liked how in your presentation you had some quotes from community members, and that's not something we've always done in Auckland transport infrastructure projects in the past. And I wondered, might you talk to the value of having that type of qualitative kind of customer experience part of an evaluation for a safety project?
Absolutely, Ping. Listen, that was deliberately a really, really important part of Te Aramoa Future Street. So there's a lot of quantitative formal analysis that's been done and published and all of that by a big group of people. But we were very focused, and I think the fact that we had a mixture of quantitative and qualitative researchers on that team helped, but we were very, very focused on those qualitative stories. And actually, part of that was driven by demand from the local community who we were working with. We would present a graph at the local board meeting or at a community meeting, and they would say, well, this is really, really great. I'm pleased that you've shared that with us, but can I just have a story from someone who actually lives there and what it actually means for them on the ground? And I just thought that was gold, and it means that the way that we've evolved is making sure that all of our data, you know, if we've got a graph, we've also got a quote from someone. And I think there's everything in between as well. You know, you can have structured sort of focus groups and you know, sort of long form stories from people as well as quotes. And I think there's a range. And one of the things we did was looking at I guess the challenges and the evolution of walking and cycling culture in Mangere, and you know, and recruited sort of local researchers to actually help with that. So, you know, we can actually get quotes from local people, but we can actually recruit locals to actually do that work as well, which I think is taking it another step, and that's been a massive evolution for us. So yeah, and I just think that mixed model of quantitative and qualitative together is very effective.
No, thank you. That's really, really valuable.
Thanks, Hamish and Ping. So that just about wraps us up for today. So thank you everyone for participating in the webinar. Thanks particularly to Hamish and Irene for being part of today's session as well, and for those brilliant presentations, to Paul for facilitating as well. We hope you found it useful. For more details on ACRS events, you can visit the ACRS website. And as mentioned at the start, this recording should be up there in about a week's time on the members area. And we hope to see you at a future event as well. If you want more info on Road Safety Week, head to roadsafetyweek.org.nz, and hope to see you at another event, in the future as well. Mā te wā.